Well, hello. It is so wonderful to be with you all. Today, we have such a special guest. This gentleman really doesn't need much of introduction, but for those of you who aren't familiar with Jason Feifer, editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur magazine. Yes, the one and only. Jason, thank you so much for being with us today. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we're so happy to have you with us. And we're doing something really fun today because not only are we going to put together this podcast and video cast, as many of you are familiar, but we decided to take it live because sharing is caring and knowledge is power. And Jason, you have been now editor at Fast Company, at Boston, at Men's Health, so many different organizations, really the who's who, and in fact, the who's who's of publications you've written for. But what I'm really inspired by is your story. And maybe you can talk about how you came to this role. And no offense, but you're really young. So that's even more exciting.
Thank you. I think I'm younger. I look younger than I actually am. I don't know. I'm about to turn 39, so I don't know if that counts as young. Okay, well, I appreciate that. Yeah, listen, I did not. If I had listed off the things that I thought I would be doing at the beginning of my career, editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur magazine would not have been among them.
No.
It just wasn't on my radar at all. And I think that is such a wonderful thing because what it means is that you cannot predict your journey. You cannot control your path. The best thing that you can do is just learn along the way, be open to new experiences, constantly revise what your goals are and what your ambitions are, and just do and go and move. And so when I look back at the things that I did early in my career that got me to where I am now, honestly, the two most important things were that I quit jobs. I quit newspaper jobs that I didn't like. Yeah.
That was your pivot.
That was it.
Quitting, right?
Because both were for a good reason, which is that I wasn't really passionate about the thing that I was doing, and I thought that if I left the confines of the job that I was in, I could do better elsewhere. So, for example, my very first job was at this tiny, tiny little community newspaper covering like nothing because there was just nothing going on in this tiny little paper. I instead decided to sit in my bedroom, which was literally next to a graveyard in this tiny town in Massachusetts, and just pitch editors. And the reason was because I wanted to work at large publications. I didn't exactly know what yet. I hadn't refined it, but I knew that I wanted to work at a much higher level than I was working at then, and that nobody at a magazine or a national newspaper in New York was reading what I was doing at this tiny little paper. Nobody was going to come to me and say, you know what? I love that story that you just did on the local diner. You should come work at the New York Times. Nobody was going to do that. And so I said, I need to go to them. And that's why I quit. And that's why I sat in my bedroom. And that's why I pitched the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Associated Press and started proving to these publications that I could work at their level.
I love this. I love this passion, Jason. You were hustling before it was called hustle, right?
Yeah, that's right. Certainly before people were wearing T-shirts that said hustle.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you are right. Absolutely. So you went from Massachusetts writing stories about diners and pitching all these big publications. And not only that, I mean, if you think about it, you're full blown. That's like pretty awesome because you're an entrepreneur. And then you end up in Entrepreneur magazine. And I think a lot of people watching this nowadays, we hear about young people like millennials and the Gen Zers, like, we don't want to work for anybody. We want to work for ourselves because if we're working for ourselves, we are truly entrepreneurs. But that's absolutely not the case. I mean, I would characterize you as the quintessential, really very, very relevant entrepreneur. I mean, how do you feel about when people say that?
It was not a natural thing for me to call myself an entrepreneur when I came to Entrepreneur magazine because I had not used that word for myself. I think that people have long defined the word entrepreneur as a very specific kind of person, which is someone who started and owns a business and a small business. And then at some point they stop becoming an entrepreneur. And I eventually came to realize and accept the thing that you just said, which is that I had approached my career very entrepreneurially. I had always had side hustles. I was always exploring new avenues, new kinds of storytelling. I have 3 podcasts now. I'm always doing stuff on the side.
3 now?
Well, I got to start getting used to saying 3. There are 2 that are out, and there's a third that's launching in August. So I'm not sure when I'm supposed to start saying.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
share this with
tell you
them.
about them all. Believe me, I spend enough time during the day thinking about them that I'd love to talk about them. So, but it took some time for me to internalize this idea that I'm an entrepreneur too. And the way that I do it, and the way that I think anybody can do it, is that you have to redefine or define what that word means. And here's what it means to me. An entrepreneur is someone who makes things happen for themselves. If you are that, if you set your own goals, if you create your own path, even if you're working at some other company that is not yours, if you are taking control of your own destiny and building and growing and envisioning, then I think that you are an entrepreneur. Or if you're not willing to say that, you're at least entrepreneurial.
Yeah, because I think you definitely are an entrepreneur. In fact, I actually want to share a quote. This is one of my most favorite quotes of like all time. And it came from Jason, okay? And that is, yeah, I'm quoting you. And that is, I've learned that no matter how valuable you think you are, there's always another way to be more valuable. And here's the simplest way I found to achieve that. Step back and ask yourself, what else would convince someone to work with me? Brilliant. In fact, I saw, because you're on Twitter and I'm on Twitter, I saw actually one of your followers just say, this was an aha moment. I'm telling you, Jason, this is exactly what I tell my team. This is the way I've lived my life. I love this. You need to expand on this. Tell us more.
Yeah. So what else can I do? What else can I do? The most important word there, this is actually in the next sentence from what you're reading, but the most important word there is else, because we're all doing something. The problem is that we could always be doing more. What else? Already doing something. Now do more. And the thing that always excites and scares me is when I discover that there was some other thing that I could have been doing that I wasn't thinking about. You know, we all do so many things, and we're mad. Yeah, it's impossible not to. You can't. You know, we're all doing too many things to be trying to move them all up at the same time. And so you get something somewhere where you're like, okay, this is working, and then you move on to the other thing. And you're like, all right, this is working. And then you realize that actually this other thing that you thought was working well is only working at who knows what percentage capacity. It's only at 50% of what it could be, and you got to push it harder. And we often, I think, want to get to this place where we feel like that's done. It's time to move on. And the thing is that it's never done. You can always do more.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, I think so many of us struggle with this in some ways, in a positive way, right? Especially those of who are always looking at different things. Like, for example, you're a great example of this. You have what most consider like an amazing job. And I'm sure you feel that way too. But then now, I thought you had 2 podcasts. Now you're on to 3 podcasts. We need to talk about this. And not only that, I know you just had your second child, which is not an easy thing as well to juggle a family. And you co-authored a book with your wife. I mean, you are somewhat crazy awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Right. Thank you. And then also taking up some of my time is that I've been doing a lot of speaking. So I've created a little speaking business for myself. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I feel like I'm at mass capacity here. Like I've tapped out all my time. Well, I think of myself as that, but I thought of myself as being at mass capacity when I had 2 podcasts, and then I decided to add a third. I did it, so I guess I wasn't. I don't know. I mean, at some point I feel like something has to change, like I need an assistant or something, but right now I'm just kind of running this thing.
You're running solo.
I'm running solo. Yeah, I mean, every project has some sort of team attached to it, so it's not like I'm doing everything myself. But, the thing is that I have this philosophy, which is even if you're at a job that you love, even if you're at a job that's awesome, which it describes what I'm doing right now, right? I have a super awesome job, and it's a very high profile job, and it gains me access to like the whole world of cool people, and I'm in no rush to leave it. It's great. But I think that you should always be working your next job. That at any time you have 2 sets of opportunities in front of you. Opportunity set A is the opportunities, or is the stuff that people are asking you to do. You show up every day to your job and somebody asks you to do this. And then opportunity set B are the things that nobody's asking you to do, but that is available to you anyway. And I have always found that opportunity set B gets you places where you're just working the job that you have won't. Opportunity set B is more important. And so what is opportunity set B? It's learning new things. It's developing new skills. It's getting into podcasting even though you have no idea if this is going to be valuable to you or if it's going to make you any money or if anyone's going to listen. I mean, that's how I got into it. And I'm just always looking for opportunity set B. So even though I show up at work every day and I do the absolute damn best that I can for Entrepreneur and for the magazine and for entrepreneur.com and all this stuff. And I love it and I want it to do well. I'm also always mindful of what else I could be learning that nobody's asking me to do, because that is what takes you to the next level. If you're only focused on your job, then you're only qualified to do your job. You don't get yourself qualified to do anything else.
That's right.
So work your next job.
So then basically you're a dinosaur sitting there and hoping that business just comes to you, which so many times you meet people in that scenario. So let's talk about these podcasts that you have. I mean, I know of 2, but you need to share with us why 3? Why not just 1 and then talk about different things? Why 3 different topics?
Right.
Or different podcasts?
Different podcasts, yeah. So because they all serve some different function in my world.
Let's talk about that. The first one.
Okay.
Which one is your first child?
My first child is called Pessimists Archive. That's my own show. I own it with one partner. And Pessimists Archive, it's a history show about why people resist new things. So every episode we look at the moment that something new was introduced that today we think of as totally commonplace. Recorded music, the car, the bicycle, the novel,
selfie?
Chess. The selfie. Sure, we haven't done an episode on the selfie, but yes, but absolutely, the selfie is a great example because we treat the selfie as new, but it's not at all. There are selfies from the 1800s, and we look at why people resisted these things and freaked out about these things and how eventually they got over it. I think that that's a really important exploration because the thing is, we all as people have this gut reaction, negativity towards new things, and we need to be embracing of them. So that's show number 1, and I launched it really just as an experiment. It was a subject that I'm passionate about, and I wanted a storytelling challenge, and I wanted to get into podcasting. And so me and this guy Louis created this thing, and it's been a super blast. Like the audience has grown really, really sizable. We've got money coming in. I have done speaking engagements because people like the show. It's very cool. So that's number 1. Cool. I'm really excited about that. Okay, then number 2 was a show for Entrepreneur called Problem Solvers. And here is a perfect example of how following opportunity set B, right, which is the thing nobody's asking you to do, can actually make you more valuable in any other capacity. So because I started Pessimist Archive before I was at Entrepreneur, now here I am at Entrepreneur, and we're talking about getting into podcasting. Now, who is the resident podcast expert in the office? I am, because I'm already making a show. I know how to do it. I have the equipment. I know how to audio edit. And so I created the first Entrepreneur podcast, which is called Problem Solvers, which I continue to host. We've done more than 100 episodes. So that was number 2, is that I made a weekly show for Entrepreneur. Now we have other shows as well. Now, why possibly add a third?
Right.
The reason is because my friend Nicole Lappin, who is the author of some books called Boss Bitch and Rich Bitch. She's like a financial expert. You know Nicole, yeah. Yes. You guys work in the same worlds. So Nicole texted me one day and she said, "Hey, would you want to do like a podcast about money and life, and which would be a kind of he said she said situation?" And the reason I said yes to this, even though I had no time, is because Nicole's a real like personal branding expert, and she understands how to build projects, and she understands how to like do things that make money. And I come from an editorial background, which is honestly not really a do things to make money. It's a like do things to satisfy your editorial curiosity space. And I was just really curious what it would be like to build something with Nicole, because I felt I would just learn a lot from the process. And we did. I mean, she got her agent involved, and we sold this thing to iHeartMedia, which is not something that, like the other 2 podcasts are, one's for my company, the other's independent. And now we're with iHeartMedia, and it's just a whole different experience, and has already opened new worlds and new doors for me. And so anyway, the show is called Hush Money. It comes out in August, and it's been really fun and gratifying. And it's just an experience that I knew I needed to have, and that it would be enlightening, and it would teach me new things, and all I had to do was figure out how to devote some time to it, and that seemed well worth it.
Say yes.
And say yes.
Absolutely.
I want to say yes a lot more than I say no.
I love that. Yeah, to the right things. At some point, you got to say no to more things because that gives you more time to do things that you're really excited about. Can we talk about the book? Because from what I understand, your book's kind of getting a makeover in Italy right now with a new cover. Yeah, which is, I think, very, very cool. Talk about the book. What was the inspiration for your book? And then you wrote it with someone that you know very well.
I know my co-author very, very well. It is my wife. And yeah, the book is called Mr. Nice Guy. It came out in October, and it's a romantic comedy. It has nothing to do with anything else that we just talked about here. It's about two people. So it's a novel. It's fiction. Let's clarify. It's about two people who each week sleep together and then critically review each other's performance in a magazine. And it is an idea that I had in my 20s and just didn't know how to write because I'm not a fiction writer. I tried and I just couldn't get anywhere with it. And this turned out to be a lesson that I think is really important for everybody in right idea, wrong time. Just because you have an idea, if you have an idea and just because it doesn't work does not mean that it can't work or it won't work, right? Sometimes it's just timing. And sometimes you have a great idea and it's just not the right time. And it was not the right time to write that book. I didn't have enough life experience. I also didn't know how to do it. And it turned out I needed a partner. And I didn't know that. But my wife is a novelist. She's published two novels prior to this. Her name is Jennifer Miller. And so she was looking for her next project after she had sold her most recent novel. And she was like, what do you think I should do? And I said, you should write my novel because we've talked about this. We talked about this concept. We both thought it was a funny premise. I'm never going to do this. And she said, well, let's just do it together. Aww. And so we spent 4 years working on it. Wow. And we sold it to St. Martin's Press. It came out in October. We've sold the TV rights. We sold 4 foreign rights. So you saw the Italy cover. That was the first foreign rights to come out. Thank you. And then there are 3 more that we haven't seen yet because they're not out yet. But that's the Brazil, the France, and the Czech Republic. And we'll see where else it takes us. But it was just, again, you got to say yes to things like this. You got to clear out the time and say yes to things like this because it taught me things that I had never gone out and sold a product. I had never sold a product. I've pushed my own editorial and stuff, and now I had a product.
You have a product to sell that you can give out. You could sign and take pictures with.
preferably sell instead of give out. But yeah, and I wanted and that was just really cool. Like all of that was an experience that I'm really glad to have.
I was going to ask you if you're Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, because you seem like a very nice guy. So perhaps a book is about you.
I think that it would be really obnoxious to write a book about yourself and call it Mr. Nice Guy because you're a nice guy. No, I mean, I've gotten that a bunch. I hope I'm a nice, I think I'm a nice guy. People think I'm a nice guy. But the book, so fun fact about books is that, oftentimes you don't come up with the title, like the author didn't necessarily come up with the title. We actually had called the book throughout our entire writing process. We called it Screw the Critics.
Really?
Because that's the name of the column that the characters write. They write this column in a magazine in which they criticize each other's sexual performance. And so the magazine column is called Screw the Critics, yuck, yuck. And so that's what we called the book. And it was our agent who one day called us and said, you know what, I think Mr. Nice Guy would be a better title for this because it's more communicative and it evokes something and it's got a familiarness to it.
It does.
And we both immediately heard it and we were like, yep, that's absolutely right. And another good lesson there, right? Like just because you came up with something does not mean that it can't be improved upon. And oftentimes you can be way too clever on something. Screw the Critics was like a little too clever. It didn't really mean anything.
Right.
But Mr. Nice Guy did.
We always need that sort of other voice that comes in and tells us and gives us a direction. So I'd love to hear about that. I mean, think about my own journey and like you said, saying yes to enough things to get one right and obviously trying always thinking about what's new, learning from other people who know better. I mean, in your world, who are sort of the advisors that you go to kind of, who are sort of your third voice?
I don't have what I would call like a specific board of advisors. I don't have like a set number of people.
Sounding board.
Yeah, I mean, my wife obviously does quite a lot of this because we're both writers, and so she's the person I see the most, and I trust her judgment, and so we bounce a lot of things off of each other. But what I have is really what I advise anybody to have, which is a series of micro mentors, people who I don't actually treat as or talk about as a mentor who probably don't know that I even think of them in that way. In the same way that there are a lot of people who have told me that they think of me as a mentor and it just never occurred to me. Instead, what they are people whose judgments I trust and whose judgments are very refined in particular areas. So if I'm trying to figure out something about personal branding or experimenting with this, I've got a handful of people that I talk to. Career stuff, I've got a handful of people that I talk to. As I'm trying to figure out things in my own kind of personal business, there are people that I talk to. I want to create an environment around me in which I have smart, motivated people who I can provide value to and who can provide value to me. And it's not because it's transactional. It's because we're friends and we're invested in each other and we're talking often enough. We're just checking in with each other often enough that I can say, and it doesn't feel weird, hey, can I, let me check in with you on this or that. Actually, literally, as we were talking about this, I just got a text from my friend Justin Klosky, who's a childhood friend who is really smart. He's out in LA. He's building companies, and we text each other all the time. It looks like he's got some sort of social media problem that I'll get back to him after this interview about. But that's like a perfect example, is right. Just like shoot over a text. Hey, what do you think about this? And we all move together.
I love that, what you said about micro mentorship, because I'm thinking through your career as, editor-in-chief and having written so many articles, you've probably interviewed so many people. I know personally, I've learned so much from the interview with you and others who have sat in your seat to really, all that wisdom. It's that crowdsourcing all of this wisdom and deciding what's relevant to you and how you can move on the knowledge that you just gained. So grateful for that. I actually want to share this with you, more on Jason. So this, he said, I love this quote, and this is that business is about building bridges, but in ways large and small. We often forget to build the bridges to ourselves. Let's talk about that. I love this.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. It is a real unique kind of delight to be quoted back to yourself. So thanks for continuing to do this.
I try.
So that came from a column that I wrote for the magazine, and the impetus of that was I was trying to find, and this has happened to me so many times, but this time for some reason it just angered me enough that I
wrote about it.
I wrote about it. I wrote a column about it. I was trying to find a writer to assign a story to. I was looking for a particular kind of writer in a particular part of the country. And anyway, I found someone who I thought would be really good. And then I could not get in touch with them because they don't have a website and they don't have an email address published anywhere. And they're on social media, but I don't know if they're going to check their DMs. And I'm not going to tweet at them. And this happens so often, and not
That's
just
so sad.
It's so frustrating. And once I started talking to other people about this, and I posted about it on LinkedIn, and I started hearing from people in different industries who have the same problem. Totally. They try to reach out to people, and these people just make it impossible to reach them. Why are you doing that? And I just thought
you don't exist. If we can't find you, you don't exist.
No, that's exactly right. You might as well not exist, right? Because you don't exist, because I'm trying to bring you into my world and I cannot. And I just thought, this writer. You shouldn't have to
work that hard.
No, which is why I didn't. I spent no more time trying to track down that writer, and I hired a different writer because I'm not going to do that person's job for them. I'm not going to track them down. But I was thinking, this writer who I wanted to hire, just imagine. Just because if I was a writer, this would drive me crazy. Just imagine that somewhere out there, there's this person who's like, I really want to get in touch with this person and give them work and money, but I can't. Pay them money, but I can't because they're not, wouldn't that drive you crazy if right now someone was trying to reach you? So I wanted to make everyone aware of that. And this isn't just about having a website. This is about doing all the little small things to build a bridge to yourself, to put yourself out there, to make sure that people can see what you do, can vet you, can understand you. Who are you and how do I get in touch with you? People don't think about that, and it drives me bananas.
Yes, I love that because it's not self-promotion. It's like survival. If no one can find you, you don't exist. Like businesses all the time come to me and say, well, Winnie, do you think I should do social media? Like, why would you not do social media? Do you not need more business? Are you not looking for more income? And if that's the case, then you shouldn't be on social media and you shouldn't make yourself so accessible. But in today's day, I mean, everybody, like you said, a writer who wants to work at a company or someone who wants to start their own business, why don't you think this way? You'd rather just sit in your office and be a hermit and hope that business just falls on your lap? I love this. This is so important. Such an important lesson too. I think the especially for our next generation, and you know, we both have young kids. You're a little bit younger, but like I tell my kids all the time, you need to be known for something, and at some point, it's your responsibility for people to learn about you, not others' responsibilities to find who you are. It's just, I love that.
Just to get like super granular on that,
yes.
there's this one thing that people do that I really love. So have you noticed that if you go onto LinkedIn, so if you look at somebody's profile or if they make a comment on a thread or something, what you'll see is their name, and then underneath is a space that LinkedIn created for their job title.
Yes.
And some people have that. It's just like product manager or general manager or like whatever it is, right? But a number of people have started using that space differently. Instead of putting just whatever their title is, which doesn't really communicate anything, they instead put their value in there. So they'll say, for example, I help build brands, or I help brands tell stories, or I help, you know what I mean? Or like I help people find their next dream job, or whatever it is. It's describing what you do, what value you have to the world. And that, like, that's just a tiny little step, but think about the mental leap that has to go into that. Instead of just falling back on, well, this is what I'm called, so this is what I am. It's no, hey, I own this. I do this. This is what I have for you. It's a really important little change, and you can do it in your LinkedIn bio, and you can do it throughout the world.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I also think like social media profiles in general, like for example on Twitter, I actually love it when people put their contact information right in their bio, because then, you know, many of us get so many direct messages. If I want to reach you and I want to reach you quick, I can just go there, find you, either email you or call you, and then we're in communication. So absolutely. Love that. Thank you so much. Well, you know, let's talk about setbacks. I mean, one thing that you had talked about is like having these setbacks. Obviously, you made decisions early on in your life. You quit jobs to get where you are. You often talk about how setbacks are such an important part of where you are today. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, setbacks are absolutely where I am today. I mean, sometimes I think about like, why do I have the drive that I do? And I think a lot of it comes down to like being miserable in high school and just wanting to like burst out of there and make something of myself and like take life by the horns, because I felt powerless in high school. It's like I think you need those kinds of things. But I've had a couple moments absolutely through my career where I either was in a job that I didn't love, or I was in a job and it wasn't working out the way that I wanted it to, or in one case was in a job and got fired. And in each of those cases, it forced me to step back and think, what do I do? What am I valuable at? How else can I present myself? And I think that we need that. You know, the worst, I mean, I hate to like trash talk in a blind item kind of way, but the people who I have worked with, who I've found to be the worst, like just the least ambitious and the least thoughtful, were people who had just kind of sailed through their career and maybe had been somewhere for, if not their whole career, the bulk of their career. I found that those people just hadn't ever really been challenged, and they got set in one particular kind of way, and they weren't flexible, and they weren't really good, I would say. And then I meet people who have gone through all sorts of crazy things. I meet these amazing entrepreneurs who started – I mean, how many times have I met an entrepreneur who started some amazing company, and you're like, okay, how did this begin? And the answer is, I had this corporate job and I was fired, right? Like that.
I was
like
mad.
I just heard that from Melissa Benishai, who created Baked by Melissa, that cupcake company.
Amazing.
Like that's her origin story. She had some like marketing job or something, whatever it was, and she got fired and she didn't know what to do, so she just started baking cupcakes, and her brother was like, you should sell the cupcakes. And that's I absolutely love it's weird. I'm going to say this thing that sounds weird. I love problems. Like I love having a problem, because it means it gives you an opportunity to refocus and to take stock of things and to say, you know what,
human.
It's time to do something different. I think that it makes me better, and I think that it makes everyone who faces it better. And I think that if you're not facing your problems, or if you're avoiding them, or if you've just picked a career and a path that is designed to avoid problems, then you are not growing.
Yes, I love that. And I love how when you started, you said the words ambitious and thoughtful in the same sentence. Because oftentimes we think that, if you're very ambitious and you're just trying to get higher and higher, that you're not thoughtful. But it's actually not the case. Because they find that entrepreneurs who really care and are really passionate and who become very successful tend to, have their senses all in order. They do sense things, they feel things, they care. They care so passionately that they know what they need to do to get there. They don't know exactly how they're going to get there, but they know they're not going to be outworked and they're not going to be outcared to get to that point. So amazing. I don't know, Jason, I'm blown away and so grateful to have spent this time with you. So huge thank you to you. How can people kind of stay in touch with you and sort of learn what your next developments are going to be?
Phrase stay in touch, because I genuinely do like staying in touch with people. If you DM me, I really make a point of this. When people reach out to me on social media, which I primarily am looking at Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Then and on Twitter and Instagram, I'm Hey Feifer, and on LinkedIn, just search my name. If you reach out to me, I respond. I do. I respond all the time, and I love it, because I want to hear from people, and I want to be useful to people. So find me on social. Also, I listed off you did a great job of prompting me for my bazillion projects, but check out particularly if you're an entrepreneur, Problem Solvers, which is the Entrepreneur Podcast. It's a weekly show, so go check that out, or Pessimists Archive is the history show. Hush Money's not out yet, and my website, I guess, has everything, which is jasonfeifer.com. And that's where you can find links to things and sign up for my newsletter and all the stuff.
Great. You have a newsletter, too. And you can actually, Jason, you can see on his bottom third, you have his name. So you definitely know how to spell it. Go ahead and follow him. I'm definitely going to sign up for his newsletter.
Oh, now, thanks. Actually, it's a monthly newsletter. I don't want to cram people's inboxes. So it's called the Feifer 5. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I promise, Jason, because he has quite a few hats and a lot of things to do. So I promise to get him out of here soon. So thank you so much, all of you, for tuning in. And most important, thank you so much, Jason, for your time. It's been a complete pleasure getting to know you. And I can't wait to meet you in Irvine so we can have lunch one of these days.
I know. We'll get out there. Well, thanks, Winnie. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone who watched and chimed in. That was really great. This was a really wonderful conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.